Welcome to Kids Corner. I'm Jonathan Kidd from State Champs. Also with me from State Champs is Jeff Dulac. We're going to recap the baseball, softball, and girls soccer state championships from this past weekend. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. Busy part of the year is finally over. Going to kick back and relax a little bit this summer, and football's right around the corner.
All right, let's start in baseball. Saline has finally done it in Division I. The sixth time was the charm. You know, you were there on Saturday. Your thoughts on the state championship for Saline?
You know, I just look at from a big picture. It's about time for Saline. It's been a baseball community for quite a long time. You have Scott Tyson, the head coach there. He's been there for, I believe, 25 years, and he finally got that elusive title. You just can't feel better for a really good guy and a really good coach. But how I looked at this weekend coming in, if Saline didn't win the title this weekend, when would they? It was, 5 times in 10 years, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. The Hornets finally got it done. They finally, got over that mountaintop, and this was the team to do it. This is a very talented team with several Division I players, a couple Division II players. This Saline team was a real deal, and they finally got it done. Do
you think that the pressure was off them after the semi against Liggett?
I think the semifinal game against Liggett was a matter of, I don't think the pressure was off of them, but for how well they played against a perennial power. I don't care that Liggett has only won Division IV and Division III. Liggett is a perennial power, and for them to play as well as they did against Liggett's ace, that gave them a lot of confidence going into the final, and they played with a lot of confidence too.
And what's your thoughts on Northville going forward? Do you think they're going to have a nice little run here, or was this like their best team?
This was a very good Northville team, and to be honest, for as long as it's been since Northville had won a regional, that was just shocking to me. I didn't know that going in. It had been almost 40 years without a regional title. That to me is insane. This is always a very good baseball program. I wouldn't go put them on the same platform as Saline. They're not quite a perennial power, but it's always a really good baseball team. They're well coached year after year, and this is a team that, it was about time they finally got their own, got to Lansing, and really got that experience.
In Division II, the game between Stevensville, Lakeshore, and Bay City John Glenn, I blinked for a second, and then all of a sudden the game was over. It was only 1-0. Lakeshore only had 2 hits in the game. Obviously, it was a pitcher's duel, and it was the first time in 27 years that Lakeshore has won a state title.
Right, and you look at that game lasted an hour and 15 minutes, which is just incredible. Max Gation, the starter for Lakeshore, he had played in the boys basketball Division II state champion, or Class B, I should say, state championship game a year ago for Stevensville Lakeshore. On Saturday, he pitched an absolute gem. He allowed just 6 hits, struck out 5 in 7 innings of work. And the really cool thing about his outing was he was facing his last batter regardless because of the new MHSA pitch count. He went into that last batter right around 100 pitches. He got out of it with 103 pitches. With the pitch count limit being 105, that was his last batter, and for how well he pitched, it's good that he got it done at that point. Because you also look at, I don't know the pronunciation, but I believe it's Alex Dingy, the pitcher for Bay City John Glenn. He pitched an incredible game. He allowed 2 hits, which was a triple, that eventually came around to score on a sacrifice fly. He had just 2 strikeouts, but he threw 56 pitches in 6 innings. Think about that for a second. It just shows you how effective he was, and credit to Gation and Lakeshore. Gation said we got the 2 hits that we needed, and that was enough.
In Division III, Madison Heights Bishop Foley won its first state titles since 2013. Mm-hmm. Those times a few years ago, we always thought they could compete in Division I.
Right.
Finally, in the last few years, they always got the hiccup against Liggett.
Yep.
Justin Campbell, in his final game, pitches a gem.
He's an absolute stud, and he said in that state final where he allowed, I believe he allowed just 6 hits, and he had 8 strikeouts. He said he didn't have his best stuff. He struggled through the first inning and really battled back and buckled down, but he was very impressive. He's going to Tulane. He's a really, really good player. But the cool story from that Bishop Foley game was, obviously we know Buster Sunday and just how well he's coached with that program, and he took that program to new heights in just almost an instant. But I guess you would call Greg Fettis a protege of Buster Sunday, and Fettis did a great job managing that team. They finished with a 25-12 record, but that's a very tough schedule they play. They play a Division I schedule in the regular season. There's no doubt about it. Coach Fettis came in just his second year. He's just fresh off of playing college baseball at Kentucky. He's a young guy. He played for Buster Sunday. Buster Sunday also runs a program called the South Oakland A's. Fettis played at
Lanphier.
Mass Knights Lanphier, thank you. And spent his high school time, went to college, and right off the bat, he's a young guy coaching a perennial baseball power in Division III.
Coach Buster Sunday was the manager when they won, was it 3?
Yeah, they won their three-peat, 2011, 2012, and 2013. Those teams were great.
And then, of course, he left the team to watch his son play at Western Michigan.
Yep.
And he's been helping out this time around,
Mm-hmm.
as like an assistant coach or assistant or helper.
Right.
Do you feel like his impact helped Fettis and that team?
Oh, see, there's no doubt in my mind, because I even asked Coach Fettis this after the game, and he said everything. He pretty much said that everything Buster Sunday touches turns to gold. He said he's that type of an influential coach where he doesn't need to be hands-on to make a difference. And Fettis even acknowledged that the help that Buster provided for him. Being, if I had to guess, I don't know this for sure, but Greg Fettis is probably 24, 25 years old. That's a young coach to have in such a proud program. And Fettis came in. And he said that Sunday, told him not to get too high, not to get too low, just to stay even keel. Because when you're a young coach and your team sees you either get too high or get too low, they're going to follow suit. And that's a really important piece of advice that Buster gave to Coach Fettis.
And lastly, in Division IV for baseball, Portland St. Patrick won its first ever baseball state championship. Last year they were in it. They lost to Parkway Christian. So your thoughts on them winning, because you were there for the end of that game against Hudson.
You look at last year's team for Portland St. Patrick's was supposed to be there. This was a team that was regarded as a favorite from the start of the year. That was a very experienced team, a lot of returners. But this year was a very, very young team. The starting pitcher, Devin Fedewa, I believe, was just a freshman for Portland St. Pat. Just to show you just how much inexperience and youth they had in this team. Coach Brian Schurer said that this is a team that. He himself said, hey, let's win 20 games. Let's compete for a league title. Let's compete for a district title, but not much more. They finished the season 34-3-1 record. That's not a record that you get from a team that's full of freshmen and sophomores. Watching that team, they looked experienced from the start. They got 3 runs in the first, run in the second, and take a 4-0 lead. You would have thought that this was a senior-laden team that just was unfazed by the big stage. I was really impressed with Portland St. Pat.
And for the listeners who didn't get the chance to watch the state finals or watch the highlights on state champs, what was that experience like after that game when the weather came in?
Man, that weather came in fast. It was almost like, obviously with us being media members, we're hoping that the rain holds off so we can get our stories in and get out of there. But, I mean, it was a matter of minutes from the final pitch of that game to the raindrops coming in. It came down. It was a downpour for a couple hours after the game ended, and you could tell, you had MHSA officials running across the field trying to get people inside. They went to Jennison Fieldhouse to do the trophy presentations. That was a very odd moment. I've been to East Lansing or Battle Creek for the finals 7 or 8 times now. Never seen anything close to that. And it's a 3-day weekend. We're used to seeing some kind of rain, some kind of weather. All of it held off, which it wasn't supposed to. All of it held off, but once that final out came for baseball and softball, the rain started coming.
And with your conversations with Jeff Kimberly at the MHSA, he's been saying in the Lansing area, it's been breaking off once it gets to Lansing, so they've been lucking out on the weather. We were looking at the radar Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and there was always 50% chance of storms at this hour, 80%, 90%, and then we check again, and we watch online or we were at the game and there was no rain at all. Yeah. Luckily, it doesn't matter now. It can rain after the state finals.
Right. It was funny because I had talked to Jeff about that because it looked like it was going to rain on Thursday. When I was covering the softball semifinals, I looked at Jeff and I was like, I'm kind of concerned about the rain. And he told me, he's like, for about the last month, the rain's gotten close to Lansing, then broken up. And then but I was convinced that it was going to rain. I go back to my computer, bring up the radar, and it had already broken up. Lansing got some luck this week.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to recap the softball state championship, so stay with us.
Get ready. The high school football season will be here before you know it. The Detroit Sports Commission's Prep Kickoff Classic returns to Midtown Detroit on the campus of Wayne State University August 24th through the 26th. Michigan's premier season-opening prep football event, now in its 13th year, will welcome 7 games in 3 days and feature the state's top teams and players. Log on to DetroitSports.org for more information. The Prep Kickoff Classic, you gotta be there.
Welcome back to Kids Corner here on the State Champs podcast. I'm Jonathan Kidd. I'm here with Jeff Dulac. Now we're going to talk about the softball state championships. And actually, we're going to start in Division III. Monroe St. Mary Catholic Central. They win it again. 3rd state title in a row. Our total softball player of the year, Megan Bovian, another state championship. She won our award. She's going to Michigan. Before we get into the final, just talk about her career.
I mean, obviously I haven't been around as long as you have in covering softball players, but she's the best softball player I've ever seen. She is as dominant as it gets. I mean, I get that she plays in Division III. They still play a tough schedule. She had close to 350 strikeouts for the season, in if I had to guess, 160 innings and 10 walks or something insane like that. She was as effective as any pitcher in the game of softball over the last 3 years. You look at our softball player of the years. The previous 2 years, he had Alex Sobczak and Abby Krzyzewicki from Farmington Hills Mercy. If it wasn't for the fact those players had as good a seasons as they did, it wouldn't be outlandish to think that Megan Bobian could be a 3-time total softball player of the year. That's just how good and dominant she has been throughout her entire career. She's been incredible.
My 15 years of covering high school sports on State Champs, she's up there with Nikki Nemitz as one of the top pitchers that I've ever seen, covering softball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she went into the semifinals with a .34 ERA. That's illogical for somebody to have that good of stats, and she dominated from start to finish. She's had the pressure on her for 2 years now. They won a state title when she was a sophomore. Not a whole lot of people knew who she was. People were gunning for them for the last 2 years, and she didn't blink an eye. She was incredible. And
how do you think she's going to do at Michigan? She's going to start right away because Betts is gone, so I think she's going to be jumping in right away.
Right. You look at what she's going to get when she comes to Michigan. I think with any freshman, there's going to be a little bit of a bump in the road, but there's no doubt in my mind in her 4 years at Michigan, she will be, the perennial powerhouse pitcher that Michigan has when they make their runs. I'd be very surprised if Michigan doesn't make a run in the College World Series with Megan Bobian in the circle. It would be shocking to me.
Besides Bobian, that was a pretty good St. Mary Catholic Central team. If you just took her off the team, they probably would have won the state title this year.
It's very possible they could have. You never know what you're going to have in the circle. I don't know what St. Mary CC had behind Bobian in the circle, but you look at somebody like their catcher Kenna Garst. She's a very good player. Samantha Michael in right field. She's just a freshman. She made an incredible catch to help St. Mary Catholic Central make it to the final on Friday, I believe. This is a very talented team. You have to give a lot of credit to a lot of these players on this team because you look at what St. Mary CC was this year. It was the Megan Bobian show because of just how dominant she was. But this team had a lot of standout players and a lot of players that deserve a lot of credit. This is a team. I mean, you just go down the line. Kelsey Barron in the state championship game had 2 RBI. That's big for them. You had Danielle Michael. She had 2 RBI, 2 for 5 and 2 RBIs. Grace Meixel, she had 2 RBIs and 2 hits. This is a very deep team. You have to give credit to the chemistry that this team had because some teams might get upset that somebody gets the amount of attention that somebody does like Bobian. But that team stayed together, and it speaks to both the character of this team and the character of Megan Bobian that they stayed close-knit the whole way through, and they dominated everybody, really, aside from Shepherd in the semifinal.
Yeah, you kind of stole some of my thunder. I was about to ask you about that, how I was at the presentation for the softball player of the year, and they all embraced her.
Yeah.
I've seen teams in the past who have a superstar player, they get jealous. They, they're, or I see like they're happy, can't wait for that player to be gone. They really embrace Megan Bovian.
Absolutely. And that I think when you look at, I think you need that. When you're a program that's been as successful as the Kestrels have been over the last 3 years, that is needed. Because we see it in everyday sports. Teammates can get a little bit tired of one another. This team was close-knit the whole way through, whether it's as in 2015, 2016, or 2017, it was close-knit. and they had one goal in mind, and nothing was going to stop this team from getting to their goal. They rely on one another, and going back to the semifinal real quick, St. Mary CC only won 1-0. Beaubien hit a batter to start the 7th inning, and immediately great defense and great leadership from Beaubien and the rest of the seniors. Shepard put the winning run on third, and they sat him down and got out of it and advanced. That shows a lot of character and a lot of toughness from a team like that.
We'll go to Division 4, Indian River Inland Lakes. Mm-hmm. Jeff, before we get on the game, where is that located?
Compared to where we are, the best I can tell you is up north.
Okay.
It's way up there. This is one of those teams, and you could tell it's another when we see teams from the way up north compared to where we are in southeast Michigan. You see those close, tight-knit communities that really rally around a specific team, and this was one of them. And to talk about the game real quick, the best player you may have never heard of that was playing in the softball finals was Chloe Mallory. She's committed to Central Michigan. She's a pitcher for Inland Lakes. She allowed one hit in the state championship game against Ottawa Lake Whiteford. That just shows you how good she is. She had 5 strikeouts, and she had an equally impressive performance in the semifinals. This Inland Lakes team, myself included, I didn't really know a whole lot about Inland Lakes, but they made a statement in their time in East Lansing.
When I posted the video of their highlights, I'm thinking like they don't have Twitter, they don't have you saw on there they have a really good social media following.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot. We see it in football with teams like Menominee or Ishpeming or Negaunee. A lot of these close-knit communities in the UP, and even when you just the further north you get, those tight-knit communities, they rally around their teams and they love everything that they can get their hands on when it comes to their teams, whether it's stories, whether it's videos, whether it's trophy shots, whether it's pictures, everything. They love everything and take it in, because when you look at it, outside of their high school teams, what is the closest team around? You have Northern Michigan and Michigan Tech, and not a whole lot else. So if they're into sports and they're looking for their fix on sports, they rely on these high school teams up there a great deal.
Did you ask, during the season, do they don't play till May, or how does their season go when the snow doesn't melt until late April, May, probably now?
That's not a question I asked, but that's a really good question, because they still played 40 games this year. That's a good number of games, and for a team that like you said, they have to endure some really bad weather. 40 games is a lot.
All right, let's go to Division 2. And one of the most exciting softball state championships over the weekend was the Ida versus Richmond game. Mm-hmm. Richmond, the defending state champs, was up 3-0 going in the 7th.
Yep.
Ida made a comeback like no other, tying it up, including was that ruled an inside the park homer, or what was it?
I believe it was officially ruled a double, and then she came around on a 2-base error.
Okay.
But that ended up tying the game and forcing extra innings. Brooklyn Woolmer, hit a solid hit to right field. It was misplayed by the right fielder, and she just kept running the whole way home and tied the game in one of the more surprising conclusions to regulation you'll ever see at the high school level.
And it ended up being 8-4.
Right.
Usually we see okay, I saw on Twitter the updates from you, it was going to extra innings, so I'm thinking, all right, it's going to end up being 4-3.
Yep.
I was shocked to see 8-4. Ida really had the bats going in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
Score 4, and then Richmond also got another run.
Yeah, well, it had to have been very deflating in the 8th for Ida, who picked up right where they left off. They get one more run, and Richmond responds. And credit to Ida for not kind of hanging their heads or being let down, because they came right back in the 9th inning and really handed it to Richmond, and made sure that 4-run deficit wasn't something that they could give up. To be honest, I don't think anybody saw Ida winning a state title this year. Credit to Ida. This is a program that, it's been a long time since they last won a title.
It's been 25 years.
Yeah, so a couple. I was 2 years old, so there's that. Look at what they were able to accomplish. Being down 3 runs going into the 7th inning against the defending state champs, against a pitcher that threw a no-hitter in the state final last year, is not an easy task. They didn't lay down, and all their credit to Ida to make it through. And one other thing. Richmond's going to be back next year. There's my bold prediction I'm going to throw out there right now. Richmond will be back in East Lansing a year from now with Aaron Shoeboy, the starting pitcher, and I know I'm going to mess this name up, but Carly Braktovich. I'm sorry, Carly, I'm sure. But, those are 2-star players, and this is a team that has several other returners that are coming back, and this is a team that will be back in Lansing, and it's not outlandish to think that they'll win 2 out of 3 titles in 2 out of 3 years.
And lastly, in Division One, Macomb, Dakota, they were in the state finals last year. They, we thought it was going to be a classic game against Farmington Hills Mercy. They kind of got blown out there.
Yep.
They got back to the finals under Kendall Dunford and the rest of that squad, and they went up against a tough Granville team who a lot of people thought that was a surprise run too.
It really was. I wrote about this after the Division I semifinal. Granville's starting pitcher, Ellie Muhlenberg, tore her ACL in a powder puff football game last fall and underwent surgery in November. And she was back mid-season pitching Granville to East Lansing and into a state championship game. That was a great story. When you hear knee injuries like that ends your season, that ends your year, really. An ACL injury is one that keeps you out for about a year. She was back in 6-7 months and competing really well. If it wasn't going to be this year for Dakota, when was it going to be? This is the best team they've ever had. This is the best pitcher they've ever had. All signs pointed to Dakota finally getting it done. Having never won a state title. Kendall Dunford is an incredible pitcher. She was in our Final Four for the Total Softball Player of the Year, and she delivered as well on Saturday in the Division I final. She struck out 11, did allow 6 hits and 3 runs, but Granville's a very good team. So, Dunford really delivered and kind of put that mark on her career and her legacy.
This game also went extra innings with Dakota winning 4-3. I felt bad that the game-winning run had to be a wild pitch.
Yeah, that's really tough. But credit to Dakota for being ready for that. Those are one of those things where if it's a single to right field and that run scores, you feel a little bit better, especially if you're Granville. But for Granville, it really has to feel like an opportunity missed because a pass ball is the difference between potentially you playing in the 9th inning, for a state championship and going home empty-handed.
And I know you had a bold prediction on Division II. Do you think in Division I, Clarkson's going to be the favorite next year?
It's really tough. I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking about it before we did this podcast. You look at Clarkston, what they were able to do. This is a team that, again, I think a lot of people expected them to be good, but maybe not this good this early. This is a very young team. You look at this Clarkson team. Olivia Warrington, I believe, is a sophomore. If not, she's a junior. And in the semifinal against Granville, she allowed 4 hits. And this is a Clarkson team that has a lot of young players, a lot of inexperience, and I really believe that this Clarkson team is going to learn from a narrow 2-1 loss and really respond. And Warrington had given up 0 earned runs in this loss. This is a team that's going to learn from this loss and really battle back, and I think we'll see them again, if not this coming year in 2018, then in 2019, because there's a lot of freshmen and sophomores on this team.
All right, we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Girls Soccer State Championship here on Kids Corner.
Sports give so many opportunities to kids. It gives them an opportunity to see where they fit within a team, persevere, understanding how to work with different personalities. Those are the lessons that will make you a successful adult. As a mom, you have to have an understanding of what concussions are.
Concussions are things that are treatable. If we take care of athletes, they will be able to develop and have a long, happy, healthy life.
Welcome back to Kids Corner. I'm Jonathan Kidd, along with Jeff Dulac here from State Champs. All right, we're going to talk about the Girls Soccer State Championships quick. Birmingham Marion, Division II. First state title since 2012. Congratulations to Barry Brodsky. It's their 6th since 2003. And this is probably one of his best teams that he's ever had.
Oh, no question. And it's funny you said, if it wasn't for the fact that you said their last title was 2012, I would have guessed maybe 2010, earlier. It seems like it's been too long since Marion's been on top in Division II. Barry Brodsky's been a great coach over the last 15 years or so, for that Marion team. And this was just kind of a culmination of a couple of close calls in 2013 and 2014, and that didn't quite make it to the final in 2015, 2016, it felt like this was the time for Marion to get back on top. This was a good Marion team, and they proved it the whole way through. They really dominated through a lot of their schedule.
And this might be their last hurrah of like one of the great teams, because we're hearing about girls soccer in these academies, and the best soccer players are not going to be playing high school.
Yeah, and Marion's been a team that's kind of fallen victim to that. They had one of the top players in the state a few years ago, Kelly Sweeney, and these rules started coming out, and I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she left Marion to go and be on these teams, and that might have led to Marion falling short a couple of years in the state finals. She was a fantastic player, but these new United States national soccer team rules are you either play in high school or you play in your club team or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of these players are unfortunately forced to make this hard decision to either play in high school or play in with their club teams. And I don't necessarily buy into it. I'm not as involved in soccer as I am in other sports, but a lot of these coaches and a lot of these clubs will try and convince kids that you can't get recruited as well in high school as you can play in club. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily believe that, because we still see recruiting happen in every sport. We have AAU in basketball, and I get that AAU is important, but I'm not going to tell you that AAU is more important than the high school season. Mm-hmm. You may catch the eye of a scout or a coach or what have you during the AAU or club team season, but when it comes down to it, I think these colleges still value what you do on the field during your high school season.
And the same way with hockey too,
right? Yeah,
with the junior hockey, high school hockey debate that can go on forever until the rules change.
Yeah, and you have the same thing with football, and everybody's really putting a value on these 7-on-7s and camp seasons, and I think people are trying way too hard and I guess having way too much success on taking the decisions and I guess they're taking value out of what these kids do on the field in actual games and competitions at the high school level, playing amongst their peers. That's just my take. I know it might not be a popular take with a lot of people out there, but that's just how I feel.
And just to wrap it up quick, congratulations to Grand Rapids Forest Hill Central.
Yep.
Their first state title in 9 years. They won in Division I, a shutout over Grand Blanc.
Yep, and Forest Hill Central was our number one team coming in, and credit to Forest Hill Central. They really had a dominant season. 21-0-4 was their record. They used 2 second-half goals to win it. This was a team that just had it all going. They had a very talented team, and they got it done.
And in Division III, we had Flint Powers with a 4-0 shutout over Freeland. That team is going to be good for a few years. Right. I saw on the roster there was a lot of freshmen, there was a lot of sophomores on that team. They're going to make a nice run for a while.
Yeah, well, obviously I was at the baseball and softball finals, so I didn't have a chance to be in Williamston for the soccer finals. But I believe a freshman scored at least 2 goals for Flint Powers.
Yeah, Kennedy Myers.
Yeah, on a stage that big, watching the highlights on State Champs, shameless plug right there, but I woke up and watched it and watched the main event highlights. For a freshman to perform that well, and those weren't goals where just right place, right time. Those were very skilled plays that she made to put the ball in the back of the net, and it just tells you the future is still very, very bright for Flint Powers Catholic.
And lastly, in Division IV, Lansing Christian, congratulations. You guys won in a shootout against Kalamazoo Christian, so your first ever state title. Congratulations to the Pilgrim.
You look at the Pilgrims, and this is just a team that's come close enough, I guess I would say, enough times. This is a team that usually makes at least a very decent run to the finals. I believe they were in the finals in 2015, and they finally just kind of were put over the top. I guess that's just my take on it. And for some of these it's nice to see some of these small programs emerge and win, because a lot of the times we see some of these other small programs that just dominate for decades at a time in the sport.
That's it for the spring.
Yep.
That's it for the 2016-17 school year. State champs will be back in August, but we'll be having podcasts throughout the summer previewing the upcoming football season.
Yeah,
so
we'll be here all throughout the summer.
Thanks again for listening to this edition of Kids Corner.